Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is from the Depths Designer once more. And this video is must be the last of a couple building videos. This one's going to be a long one. Now I've got a couple more ships that I want to build for the campaign. One is a light cruiser for the cruiser fleet, just a bit of a speedy cruiser compared to what I've got, but also some comments and mails from people. They wanted to go through, you know, how do I do a realistic build and how do I build basically all the bits and pieces. So this will be a longish build, longish build video, and I will put time codes down in the description for various parts, because I'm going to go through not every single building block, but fairly much most of what I'm going to be building. So first of all, what are we going to build? So first of all, what I do is I go and find a ship that I really like, and I go and find some pictures. So in this case, based upon what's been said by others, we're going to look at HMS Agincourt. It was mentioned in the comments, but I'd also been thinking about this before, so I've already done a little bit of thinking about it. So what I do is I go and find out about a ship which is fairly unique, and with this picture you can see some of the unique features of it, but what I'd like to get is a line drawing similar to this. And what I'm looking for is the unique parts. Now obviously one of the biggest part is this has 7 turrets on it, 7 dual 12-inch turrets in the original. And interestingly, just as a point, because it had 7 turrets, the normal naming A, B and X, Y didn't really work, so it named them unofficially after the days of the week. So it was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday as names of the turrets. The other bits I'm looking for on features here that I'm going to carry over is the height of the gun. So right, it's not a flush deck. We can see that the front Sunday gun is at about the same level as the 2 middle Tuesday and Wednesday gun, and also the rear Friday gun. And the rear, where we got Thursday and Saturday, are lower. So now we're going to have to take that into account, and the Monday gun is on a barbette, so we've got 2 barbettes. So that's an interesting element I want to carry forward. The other bit is funnels, 2 large funnels. So we will try and carry that type of fixtures over. Looking at the top down view, you can see this has got a big arse on this ship. It looks like it's narrow at the front, but going out quite to a large width. I'm sure it had to have quite a large width to support all of these guns. So we're going to make this, it's going to be a widest ship, so must be about 30 to 35 meters wide, I think, at the widest part, and we'll carry that back right near the rear and quickly bring it off at the rear. Other interesting part, you can see the shape of the superstructure in the center with its angles and all of the guns encasements off of that, with a few in little turrets. Now we've got some other pictures which show some of this as well. Here we can see the flying bridge that's in the center. That's another unusual fixture which isn't in the line drawing, but was in the original build, but was then taken out when the Royal Navy took this ship over. Maybe we'll talk about the history of this ship in a bit, but so that's another thing. I might include that. It looks like it had some boats on it, and maybe we'll put some guns or something on there, but we could use that, as long as well that central, it's not a mast, I think it's a crane for the boats. So I meant that central mast or crane for pulling over is another interesting point to try and reenact. Finally got another picture that I looked at, and that shows the casement guns. We can just see the casement guns are all in the side, and it's a flush side. What I mean by that is it's there's no deck in front of those casement guns. They are below the level of the primary gun, of the Sunday gun, and that goes all the way up to the edge. There's no decking there, so okay, they're right at the very edge of the ship. Some other interesting ones there. You can see, you might just be able to see there's some turrets and other casement guns in the top of the ship. Looking through, what this ship really had was 7 twin 12-inch guns, 20 single 6-inch guns, which were in those casements, and also there was some guns behind shields, and it had 10 3-inch guns, and it had some 3 21-inch torpedoes. We might put the torpedoes in near the end. Other interesting factors on the ship was the armour, in that the armour was reduced because of all of that weight, and it was one of the weaknesses of the ship. The barbette and other area were only 9 inches, and they were actually strengthened later on. So with the basic structure and key features I want to carry through into the ship, the next thing I've looked at on my little design area is the guns. So first of all, we have here a 293mm gun, which is close enough to 12 inches. Generally with the realistic I tend to upgun, but we didn't have problem fitting everything in with so many turrets, so I've gone for this 293. And also the barrel is only basically 40 calibers roughly, 12 meters. Now a caliber is, you take the gauge and how long is the barrel. Now normally I like to go 50-60 calibers to give a good accuracy, but in this particular case we're down to 12 meters on, let's say a 30 centimeter would be 40 calibers, I believe, if my maths is right, which is close to historic, but that will give us a little bit more gap between each of these turrets. We're also keeping the turret size within a reasonable size. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 with a space at the back, 5 back from the center point as a minimum, and also we need quite a bit of height on a couple of them, and it might need to go a bit higher than that actually, to put that barbette in, the barbette look for some of them. So we're going to use this particular gun as a basis, I think, for what we're going to build. They've all basically just got a 3-meter shell with clips. It's going to have not ultra fast spammy fire, but it's going to fire at a reasonable rate. Shells, because that's the other important part, I'm liking a kinetic heat round at the moment with a little EMP. I have tried also a squash head and a few others. I've found this kinetic heat reasonable for this gauge. They've both got pluses and minuses. Normally I do like HESH. I do go for HESH quite a lot, but at this gauge I've found it's got a slightly better, this one's the HESH, the kinetic heat, and you'll notice it's got a slightly better cooldown, 386, and recoil 66, whereas the HESH round has a cooldown of 473 with a recoil of 85, because it needs a little bit more gunpowder to have the sort of same range and as the hollow point solid round, because of the solid basically does actually mean it holds its range a little bit better. Anyway, so I'm going to go with the kinetic heat round for the moment. give it a go. I think against the small medium ships that this is going to be aiming at, it will work quite well. Also, secondary guns. This is these are the 179mm casement guns. I'm going to do a version of these. As you can see, they've got about a 45-degree firing arc. We'll put plenty of those on the side, and then we've got this gun which will be using the gun shield, and that will be placed at a few strategic places as well. So that will be the other gun. And then the 3-inch gun, we've got a little simple 99mm gun here, which I think we can put on the deck in a few places just to add a little close-in protection. So we'll work on that one as a small little close-in weapon. Yeah, so next let's get on with the build of the actual ship. So I know this ship is going to be a long ship. It's going to be somewhat with all of these turrets. So the first stage I'm going to do is build like the core. So I always tend to build the structure at the bottom, which the first turrets will be connected to. Now the second part is working out that first turret. Now approximately it's, let's see, I believe I did it 1 2 3 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, so just there. So that's the size of the area that will be required for the turret. Now I'm going to have to elevate the first turret, because going back to the picture, the first turret is slightly larger than the rear ones, so the rear ones also need a little bit of a gap for the gearboxes and engine shaft, propeller shaft to go underneath the turret. So I'm going to make this another 2. So we'll put a 2 beam on top of that. So we're going to work with that. So basically it's 2 plus 4, and then we'll build the base for the turret underneath that. There we go. So that's the base of the barbette, and now we need to build the turret. So what I'll do is I'll quickly copy over the turret I was using, or the gun I was using over there, and maybe modify it a little bit for this. So after getting a turret sort of initially built up with its barbette, and I've only used solid metal here because it was a deficiency of light armor on the barbette, so it's going to be a little glass cannony this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just test to make sure I've got this right and that it still turns around. So created a fire control next to me, so I should be able to go off, and if I go in here I can make sure that the turret turns all the way around. Yes, it does. Okay, so now I can just complete this off. And there, that'll give it a little bit of shape without being now. So this is going to define our top deck height. So now what I'm going to do is mark out the deck, because this is going to set the deck height for all the other components in the ship. So if we go out a little bit and then back where that superstructure was going to be, so that will be the height for maybe where that rear superstructure is. And then we're going to need, for the next ones down, we're going to go down 4, or 1 2 3 4. So that leaves a gap of 3 here to put our casement guns. So we're going to bring this out as well and bring that back equally. And that's going to go basically all the way to the back. I don't know exactly where the rear is going to be yet. I have set out enough length here to cover most situations. I'm just going to take this down so that it doesn't get destroyed if I click it by accident. So now what we can do is roughly work out some of the places for the next guns. Now the next is going to be this B turret with its barbette, so it's going to need a slightly different build, very similar. I'm going to duplicate this, but it's still going to need to be, for the guns to fire above these ones, it's got to be 1, 2, 3 levels. We'll put it literally directly above this here, and I'll need to go back about 2 levels. So if we do it with some wood down the bottom, because it's going down, we'll go back 2 levels, and at the front, yeah, we've got enough room at the front there. Then we'll duplicate this, but we need to add 3, so this needs to go, but the 3 is actually going to be all in the barbette. So actually I'm going to be able to copy this almost identically and just change the actual turret itself. So we'll have that, this part on top, go back the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 7, that can't be right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7. Okay, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th one. Let me get this one built as well, and then hopefully I should be in a position. Now I could thinking about it, prefab this, but I've started, so I'll finish. So now that we've got the front 2 turrets just about sorted out, what I can start thinking about is where the superstructure is going to go and the turrets that are in the middle. Now what we're going to do is go back to the picture. So looking at the line drawing as an example, we can see that the front of the superstructure and also the rear part of the superstructure, they go off at an angle which is a little bit more than 45 degrees, but I think we can go with 45 degrees as a basis. Maybe use 2 meter slopes instead of 1 meter slopes in some cases. Certainly for the rear one, I think 2 meter slopes, but the front one maybe we can get away with just a 45 degree 1 meter slope, and that will sort of set a little bit for the width and size of the front of the ship, and it's going from just behind the Mundy turret there. Now we'll need some room for the bridge area and that first turret, the funnel, and let's see how many we got there. We'll give it about, we need space behind this for the conning tower, and then we'll look at where the conning tower and the bridge were in the pictures, but I'll put possibly a flying bridge up here, conning tower just behind with its ranging. The ranging was on the mast actually, so just a conning tower which is like the battle bridge just behind here, which will just be 1 block above. The portholes will be 1 and 2 blocks above, with a normal bridge above that. Let's say that the funnel somewhere around this area. Right, so we're going to set that area up as that's going to be the front of the system. Now what we've got to do is reproduce this. So for that I'm going to actually make this a prefab up to this point here. So capture prefab, we just use one of the empty spots there. We're going to call that Sunday Barbette, and we're going to need to go that width, that height, and oops, a little bit height down, just there, and I think let's just turn that around and go in. Is that going to be big enough? Yep, that is large enough, so I can capture that. But we need to actually have it higher on the area, but it is captured. So first of all, how many blocks? Now we've got to allow for the turning of the gun, which is going to be how many blocks in front. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10 blocks in front. So the easiest way is if we give it a little bit more for turning, so we'll say 12 blocks just there. So that means, I think, just there will be our first turret. And then go back 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the 8th, and then up 2. Now let's place our, well, we'll actually think about the other one. Now we need a bit of a space behind, and we've got that mast and turret, mast and yeah, the mast area behind. So if we say 1 behind that, so let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll give it up 5, another 1, so just there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, up 2, and that will be the so that's Tuesday and Wednesday turrets. So let's set those barbettes and see if that will work. So place sub object, let's go up, make sure I place it correctly. 1, and the other one was reversed, but it shouldn't actually matter too much, but we're, in case there is any differences, we will match it. Now we need to do is copy the gun. So we'll make a quick object of the gun. So we go here, save sub object, we'll just delete one of these, select that, we'll do Sunday turret, and we will now line that up and place these in position, hopefully. Now before I do any more, I want to make sure that these will actually turn with the guns and are not being blocked by some bit of metal. So we go here, yes, everything's gonna fall down, but we don't really care, and then turn around. Now we've got some clipping there, but there's going to be limits on the guns anyway to stop that, and around here there'll have to be a limit as to the how low they'll go to stop them shooting into each other's turret, but we'll sort that one out when we start doing the gun. I think 10 degrees would be enough. So back to the drawing. Now we can see we need a funnel just behind that gun, and there's a superstructure, so simply we can put something near the edge of there, give it a bit of width, and then cut back into this area to define the end of the superstructure, possibly using 2 meter slopes. So first of all, I'm going to define the ends of the gun plus a little bit. So that's going to be our starting point for this funnel, and a little bit extra just for a little sort of, there's a certain amount of superstructure or there which is going to potentially contain the secondary gun control. So we'll allow 1, 2, 3, yeah, for the funnel, 3 for the funnel, a little bit more. Then we'll start coming back. I'm just gonna no, we don't need a little bit more depth this way. So that's the funnel, and then the superstructure in front of the funnel, narrowing down a little bit potentially like that. Then coming back, we're going to do 2 each time, so it will come back in 2-meter sections, somewhere around that, maybe a third at the beginning just to fit it all in. So okay, we're getting an idea of where our funnel, and that's where our superstructure is going to be. We're going to put some rearward facing casement guns into that superstructure. So now we've got the rear guns. I thought this was going to be too long, but we're getting close to using all of this now. So on this one, we're going to need another 3. This goes down by 4 meters. I'll just use a wooden block for the moment, because this is basically our superstructure, and this is going to be our second level of decking. So on here we're going to need a copy of this barbette again, and then we'll need a superfaring version over there. So we're actually going to need this to be longer. Oh dear. So this is actually going to be lower by 4. So actually all we need is the 2 beam blocks. So if I go level with this there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 there. Then the next one, I need a gap. It's going to be next one, gap of 2, and then we can put another turret in. But this will have the full height. This will be a copy of. No, it's going to be actually have the same height. It's going to be a copy of this turret, so it's going to be a different turret. So gap of 2, and then we put that turret in. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Gap of 2, and then the next one. So all the turrets are now in place. This is one long ship. Where are we at the moment? We're 160, and I haven't put the front and rear on yet. So again, we just have a quick check, make sure all 14 guns are turning around. Now obviously some of them won't turn all the way around because of turrets in the way, but generally that's all looking good. So the next stage I like to do is just make sure this is gonna generally float. I think we'll be okay because we've got a lot of volume here, but rather than fill in parts in the center, I'd like to just start building the hull out. See how wide we are. We're at 27, which is okay, which allows for maybe 2 or 3 each side. I think that'll be okay. So I'll fill in the superstructure, continue around these wooden blocks. So I'll just do it with wooden blocks initially everywhere, just to make sure that it's gonna roughly be correct and we're gonna be in a situation that will float. I'll fill in the front area so we can put some water pumps in here just to pump out the water, make sure it's at least gonna not topple over. We might have some stability issues initially, so I'll put a whole bunch of lead down here initially, but I would like to remove that. The other bit is I need the water level to be lower than this section. At the moment you can see the mass is just, and we've got a lot more to put on here yet. I want the mass to be a lot lower, and certainly the buoyancy point has got to be slightly above the mass for it to be buoyant. We're mostly going to have to use some active stability on this, but I like to try and at least initially make it float with just natural natural buoyancy of the hull shape, and the hull shape will it will come down from this hull point. It will come down slightly and then come in, so, and then we must go another 4 below this to create a keel underneath, to add a little extra buoyancy. But we'll see how we go once I've filled everything roughly in. Well, so far, considering how top heavy the ship is in general, I've put, as you can see, a whole load of lead down there to get the buoyancy below the mass, which keeps it stable, and we're still a good 8 blocks available for the water level. Now obviously there's no armour yet, and there's no superstructure, and what I will tend to do now is build, rather than holding it, unless I'm specifically building underneath, I'll actually build it whilst it's floating. That way I can see if something is suddenly starting to make it roll and tip over, and then I can adjust it. And as I add things and the buoyancy goes down, I will remove some lead to bring the waterline up. Ideally I'd like the waterline to be here, a couple of blocks below the deck, but yeah, anyone's seen my ships, they tend to be, it's a bit fine. Often it's at the deck at most, but I've got this lower deck here, so I would like it to be, you know, a couple below at least. So with a couple of hours in on this, with a little break, we're now got to, or what I'm going to plan to do is put in the next heaviest components, which is the armour along the sides and also the bulkheads. So we're going to split up the insides here into multiple separate areas all around. So it will also make the floating a little easier with lots of individual water pumps rather than one massive one, which is going to have a problem with this size. The armour layout I'm going for is basically at the just about the waterline. The main belt is going to be the equivalent to about 3 meters of armour of blocks. So we've got 2 actual solids with stone and a bleak and a half lighter alloy, just to give a bit of buoyancy on the outside. Going down, removing one of the metals on the inner, just below the waterline, and then going down to below the engineering deck. This deck here will go down to just a light alloy, and the same on the way down here. We just put light alloy on the outside. Deck the only armoured deck will be at this particular level, and that will have a sloped metal, so half metal plus the actual armoured wood itself as the main area. Above that, the main deck will just have its normal level, and here we're going to put a slope on here against the superstructure, so it's not going to be, you know, it's to be protected at this deck level, but above that it's going to rely on the armouring on the barbettes. These are all armoured, of course. We will put a little extra bit of armour on the outside of these just to stop any EMP and such like hitting them. So yep, there's a lot of F3 and a lot of replacing the wood etc with metal, and then we'll see how it floats at that point. The bulkheads will start to become very important once we get this amount of weight in there, and the bulkheads I normally make out of metal around the turret points, so if there's any damage going through to a turret, it doesn't affect the buoyancy. So I'll normally split it at the various turret points, and I will use metal so that because the bulkheads are important to ensure stability of your vessel. I tend to not necessarily split them down the center. I tend to just go, it does depend on some of the systems. I will tend to try and make one central one. Around the turrets I will make a left, right and center, just to see how the buoyancy goes. Sometimes it's better to have one long one, that way if that section goes it doesn't list too far to the left or right, but at the same time it's a big area to be taken out. In this particular case, underneath the turrets will become the magazines, so they'll be filled in anyway, so I might as well make it a left and right bulkhead. Anyway, let me get this armour sorted out, because that will take a little while, and we'll see where we get from there. So after putting in all that armour on the side, so we've got the thickness of armour along the side, including an air gap which has been separated and put water pumps in there, and then if I can get internally we have bulkheads going through, so at various areas on the bulkhead. Let me see if I can show you what we've got. So we can see here how I've segregated the hull into various little areas, each with their own little water pump. Some of them are a single one in an area. Depending on what I put in this area, I may split that up further. And you can see at the side we've got the armour as I was making. Let me just see if I can get a better view of that. Maybe just there. There we go. So a bit of armour. So we've got the alloy, there's actually a metal, then the oblique, then stone, and then finally metal. It doesn't always come through on this particular view, but it is as I said previously, it showed on the front. Excuse me. So next on the agenda is to put in a few items which are going to be critical to the ship, such as the shells and the armory, the magazines. Now, as a general rule, I tend to put the main magazine with all the shell definitions under the front turret. In this case it's the Sunday turret, so I tend to put everything under here and fill that up, but I fairly armour this pretty well, and I may use some heavy armour on this just to add additional support on the side. And then under each of the turrets I tend to put a bit of a magazine. Now people said, oh yeah, but that's, you know, not a good idea for various reasons, and it is true. Generally putting your magazine under the turret means if the magazine goes, the turret goes. But at the same time, it's sort of historical in that most of the ships would have had their magazines below the turret, so that it's easy to get to. Yeah, I don't know what's how far do you go with accuracy. I like that idea, and it's in the most armoured spot of the vehicle. I've got lots of armour internally here and above me, so to be honest, this is a pretty damn well armoured area already. So anything trying to get through this particular point is going to have to go through quite a lot of armour, quite simply. Let me just, so I'm going to armour the top of it as well from any plunging fire. We'll put 3 beam that side. Then to stop any EMP, I will line the outside with some wood, just to stop EMP coming down the sides. And then I will put in the ammo controllers for the various shells we've got or we're gonna need. I think, trying to think what the largest one is, but nope, we don't need bigger than that. There we go. So we'll put them all in ready, because we're going to need some for the 79mm, which is only a 3, and then we're going to need, there's some other guns that are going in here as well, and we'll sort those out as we need to. So to name this block, I'm going to press Shift N, and then I can call this what are we've got a 293mm shell. And we can define it, and I'm doing a hollow. I'm going to go with this hollow point. I'll put it up at 293. Yep. Solid. I remember now. Base bleeder was about there. Then I have, I think, solid, and then 1, 2 EMP. I've got an EMP at the back, just a little bit of EMP. 2 HE with fully going to their special, yeah, and the secondary shaped charge, which is set to penetration. So good range, although we're only going to use half of that, but it gives us a good muscle velocity at that range. Shell length looks okay, so yeah, that will be explosive damage. At least it's got some explosive 5-meter radius, but the heat has got a good 36mm, and the main bit is this kinetic damage, good 5,700, hitting fully with the hollow point at a AP of 10, which is more than I'm going to get with it normally. Then we'll have at the front here as well some ammo producers as well in this area. Whoops. And then I might put a block of wood on the top. I don't like it not having EMP, and the wood just adds a little extra protection. And then finally we'll cover this center section with the actual ammo. Oops, wrong one. Ammo storage, and we'll use the big 2x2s just to save on block count. So now at least we have some ammo, and in these other areas below these other turrets, I'll create a smaller magazine just to give a certain amount of some additional area. It'll also split up the fire. Rather than them only firing at one place, they'll have multiple areas they'll have to try and get through if they really want to take out the ammo, and it may split up the enemy's fire. So let me just get these magazines sorted out, up armour them, and see what we can do with that. So the main magazines are now placed under the Sunday and Monday turret. We actually have them under the turret, and also the central Tuesday Wednesday turrets underneath, and at the back, because underneath we're going to need to run the propeller shafts and gearboxes, I've put a small amount of ammo storage between the turrets, and all of them have got some heavy armour protection, a sloped heavy armour along its sides to help out against any incoming fire, because they will be targeted. They're also in general behind some of the thickest amount of armour, plus they'll be underwater, so they're going to have the maximum chance to be defended by armour. Okay, next we are going to look at what else is going to go on the top of the ship, to see what we're going to have with problems with buoyancy, stability, as we place items up. Now we're going to have a look at the line diagram again, and we're going to look, we've got this frontal structure which includes the conning tower, the main bridge, some more casement guns, and the front funnel, and then the rear funnel, and there is a structure on the rear funnel and as well, which has got some more casement guns, and we're going to put more control directors there. Yeah, so some of this we're going to have to make out of metal, so like the conning tower and the supports for the bridge will have to be metal or heavy armour, because they're going to be, you know, taking a lot of damage and we want to survive. The rear structure and the rest of the structures can be light armour and a bit of wood as armour, because they're not it's not as important to have them structurally sound. Where there's casement guns, I would like to, I'm just trying to think this here, yeah, where there's casement guns I would like to have them as metal to protect the guns, because there's going to be a lot of ammo in there. We don't want that cooking off for any reason, so I'd use metal where possible on the casement areas. But looking at on the casement part of it, if we look at some, I'm trying to find a good picture. Okay, if we look at this picture, we can see that some of the casement guns, that's not a good one. Yeah, we can see the casement gun is actually almost flush with the deck on the front, fires forward, and then you had a shielded gun a bit behind. I think we'll go with that particular view, so that means we haven't got to raise the armour too high on that section compared to the line drawing of the view. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. We also notice it comes back at about 45 degrees, following the angle of the casement below to leave room for the gun to turn, because I think it is slightly, yeah, it's level with the gun, or with the lower gun. Let me just make sure that is correct. Yes, it's level with the lower gun, leave room for the lower gun to turn. Okay, yes, we can have a work on that. It's going to be angled, but the main one I think starting off is conning tower. The bridge hangs over the conning tower a little bit. The funnels are quite large. Looking at this, they're not small funnels, so we're going to put some increased size funnels, and we'll see how we can lay them out. First of all, we'll look at the conning tower. Now, the conning tower, I want one porthole to be one level above here, and that's going to be at a level 3 up from the floor. So that's going to be up another that 4 there. So I need to go up 2 more to have our level for the conning tower. So for the floor port, let's just think. We've got 3. If we take this 3, yeah, 2 up and 1 up actually, then flooring. Is actually, now we're going to use heavy metal on this still, because this is a critical area. We need to make sure he's covered. So I'm going to cover it with some beams, and we can always put something below. In fact, yeah, we'll do it like this actually. We'll do this and then put some slopes in, and we'll make the conning tower quite high. Why didn't that go up? Didn't quite go as I wanted, so we'll change that around. Now the thickness of the conning tower, normally I would like to make this double thickness, so that's going to define how far back. We need at least a 3 or 4 area to fit everything in. So if I now just place the items I want to place in the area, that's 1 level, 2nd level, and then we're going to say we're going to have a chair. We'll have a raised chair. So what we'll do here is we'll put a block. Now you could put heavy armour on the inside, but I'm going to leave it with the light armour at this moment. And we put control chair just here, and we won't make it well, it's the default for the moment. Now if they ever actually sort out Rambot, so he's either doesn't stand on the chair, which is a bit sort of bad manners, he'd be actually looking through this porthole, which would be nice. At the moment he looks halfway between 2, which is basically bloody annoying. So it means you can't actually use the portholes in first person view, which is a bit problematic. But okay, that's going to be our conning tower. Let me just fill in the blocks and smooth it out a little bit now I know the scale of it. So with the conning tower complete, and I've built up the bridge area, a general bridge. We just place some controls down there just so that it's we have some obvious controlling points. So this won't be the battle bridge. This is fairly much just gonna have controls for some of the more basic things like going into combat. This is where the initially the captain would have been at the beginning of a battle, but after a while I think people tended to the conning tower was supposed to be the battle bridge, for want of a better word, but they used to put the second officer etc would go in there, and the captain would want to be able to see the battle and see everything. Now I followed some of the pictures I saw that seemed to have a fairly open strutted bridge as such, and it wasn't that enclosed with potentially some nice walkable stairs down the back. A bit more stairs than I need, but it looks alright, and we've still got a door that takes us into the conning tower. Now we'll put on the foremast some of the detection stuff. Now since this is keeping a little bit, now normally a little bit in character with the time period, I'm gonna keep my detections. Obviously we're going to be up against people with missiles but not lasers, so we will have munition warners on the sides to detect any munitions coming through. And let me just think, actually no, we'll change that. We're going to have some long range. Let's see, we will use visual sensors to get an idea of what's out there. So let's say detection, we will on the front allow a camera gimbal tracker, I think would be adequate, and then on the sides we'll have a camera for long range spotting, and then on these ends we'll put the munition warner, and on the rear it can go there. And then as far as some passive detection and slightly more all round, we'll have the passive radar to detect any radar missiles. Now I have been using the thinking the only thing that I would allow is the laser range finder, because it does give a reasonable accuracy on these large guns, but I'm not using radars and the radar trackers. Now you can put those on if you're not worried about staying in keeping, shall we say, with the period that I'm trying to say, where they didn't have radar. And I may introduce radar on later versions of a ship when they were historically, because later on in World War II a lot of these ships were upgraded to have radar. I can't have that one there because it will block the sensor. And then let's see, we'll put this up here just to protect it against any sort of sideways shots. Now that may block that sensor here, in which case we may put that in a different location. Okay, let's think. Let's put it there and then put the camera on the front only. Okay, that should do for the moment. We'll just put some nicer blocks. I've used this particular sort of formation I've used in a number of the ships, has become a little bit of a standard I do for a targeting block. On some of them I've put a little proper crow's nest up there with a seat and made it the directors, but I think this is just supposed to be good enough for most systems. It's red because there's no AI at this moment. We put the oh, my words are gone again. I've put the funnel at the back, and we will put another similar size one back here as well. I think we'll set the, but we need to have a look at the pictures to see whether it was part of the rear structure or above it. But that's it for that front structure. I may up on here put some small guns, some anti-missile systems or something like that, just something small, just to use these, maybe even some searchlights. Let me have a look at the next stage. I think I need to get this and have a look at the picture to see how it's going to be laid out. So that's the rear structure created roughly how I think it would look. We've got enough room for a casemated gun, I think, in here, although we might have to have a change of its size and make it less effective, and also the shielded turreted gun on the top. I'm thinking plan here, we might have to just modify them a little bit. I think they're going to be a bit large, so we might have to either put a smaller one up here or just change a few bits and pieces. We're trying to be close to the Agincourt, but if it's got a few little bit of what should we say, artistic license, shall we say. So the last little bit for top heavy. Oh, I did put the secondary gun director effectively up here. So we've got some small range finders and a visual camera, and this will be for the close range secondary weapons primarily. That's what these will be controlling in general, whereas this one is obviously controlling the will be controlling the main part of the gun, all the main guns. Level 1. This is set to be on channel 2, so everything on channel 2. We may put I think 2 should be enough. We may put another detector out somewhere just in case this one gets destroyed, and the same with the primary. Put something up as at least give some directions even if the main mast gets taken out, and that was normally done with something on one of the turrets. Quite often one of the turrets would become the director for the turret systems. But for the moment, I think next we've got this little section in the center needs fleshing out, which was the crane. I'm trying to think of what it was now. It was a crane, and there was. I'm not worried with the flying bridge. I think the flying bridge is just going to be too many blocks and in the way, so I won't put that in, although it would have been a good place to put a load of AA. I think this ship is going to be somewhat short on AA guns and just basically be a whole load of primaries and secondaries, but mainly I wouldn't say mainly, but I think it's possibly going to be somewhat open to attack from aircraft. But without the flying bridge, we'll have to think of somewhere. I might put a bit of a bridge in there just to hold some boats, but we'll see how we go. Now I'll put this here. That's a little too square, so we'll just corner that up a little bit. That's a little bit nicer. So okay, I'm going to leave it like that. There's a nice little crane item added to that. I think that looks quite nice, and so far I think we're getting a reasonable shape. So the elements that I want to look at next is fill in some of the internals, which is going to be boilers, which I'm going to have a boiler under each of the stacks because that's what they're there for, to allow the smoke, so we might as well have the boilers in roughly the right place. But the front boiler is just going to be basically to do with controlling power for systems, so battery charging and power for shields, etc. This will have some shields, and the rear boiler will purely be to do with speed control and the engines. Now engines wise, should have enough room to put the engines just before this Thursday turret, so between the Wednesday and Thursday turret, the boilers under here, engines here, then we'll have gearboxes going out to the rear, and then we'll bring the rear in. Now on the rear I want to have a work at trying to make the rear keeler a little different than what I normally do, so we'll have a work on that. And then the front one will have a couple of small boilers here and some engines, or just some engines with lots of generators to produce power for batteries. I might put we don't need anything else below these guns, so I might put some batteries below these center guns. They're nicely in the center, so the weight will be nicely distributed down, and they can be the main battery source. I also tend to put some in the front and the rear. So the next couple of bits, I think I've also got to smooth out the front, the bow, so that it basically will cut through water. So far with buoyancy, we're doing very well compared to some of the ships. I think it's just sheer size of this vessel, and I've kept the metal to a minimum. We have got a lot of metal here, but this isn't heavily armoured. Obviously the main belt is, but I haven't been using tons of heavy armour in the centre, but I may now. This is the point where this the engines, which are going where are they going? They're going down here, and the AI, etc. I do want to cover them with a significant amount of heavy armour to protect them, so that may well add to the weight considerably in the next little bit, but we'll see how that goes. We'll put them in first, and then we'll armour them up, like give them a bit of a box citadel, just to make sure everything stays in place, and then we can rebalance the buoyancy once it's gone up, and we can see how much lead we've got to take away. So getting on to the main propulsion engines now, and I had hoped to get 4 3-meter propellers on here, but I found that to run the gearboxes, because I can't put an axis shifting after a gearboxes, I have to run the gearboxes through the supports of the main turrets, which is a bit of a problem, as you could imagine. So I'm gonna go for 2 5-meters and basically make them fit in that sort of zone. So to simplify things a little bit, I've made a little trench for the pistons. So we're gonna go for 4 pistons. We've got 4 reasonable size boilers, and what we'll do is each boiler will simplify it. Each boiler will support 2 pistons on each side. Now I was thinking of having mixing the boiler amounts on each side, but I think it's better to keep it even until there's some sort of rework. You know, there's no advantage of having different numbers of boilers to different areas. Now these are not going to be highly separated. We didn't have a 1 boiler area. I will put some heavy armour down the sides to act as a little bit of a citadel for it, but a hit in this area would be problematic, shall we say. So we'll have 4, and then we'll start thinking about axis shifting, and I'm going to break these up because I don't like them. We'll have 4, but we'll have a engine shaft in between, I think. There, and then the final one, and finally a axis shaft. Yeah, we'll put a bearing shaft actually in there, and these are the wrong way round. They've gone red, which means that they're facing the wrong way. So I do tend to do that. Got to keep an eye on those damn parts. Now, where do we want to walk around the outside? So we'll have the scaffolding in the centre. In actual fact, I need to swap these around first. There we go. Now they've all gone to the right shape, so we know we are correct. So let's just put now the pistons in, and we'll have them facing this way. One. Now, to fit steam engines in, you need quite a high roof because of all of the steam pipes you've got to put in on here. So we've got to have 8. So we're going to go through 2 floors on this. So I'll just sort out the pipe work for this. We must probably have the pipework 2 and then 4, and I think I'm going to use some of those nice decorative strut blocks in between these just to finish it off, because I think that will look quite nice. And maybe one at the end. We'll see. I need to join them in some way to the ground, so possibly a 4-meter truss here. And change that last one to be a 4-meter on each side. Yes, that's looking quite as if it would be suitable. Yeah, that's looking reasonable. We must have to put the same at the other end to even it out, to keep that looking reasonable. Well, no, we'll leave it like that. I think that'll be okay. So let me sort out the steam, and let's get some power into these. So with the boilers at full power and with the boilers at full burn rate, the engines are getting up to a reasonable speed, still accelerating up a good amount of power. I think that should be able to easily propel us along, and the boilers should cut out. I'm expecting a lot lower RPM than we've got here. We've got nearly 130 it's coming up on. I'm expecting to be a lot less we'll need. So we'll just bring them all back down again to nothing burning, and then we'll put in the, so we need an axis shift, and then we'll start putting in the gearboxes. Now we must probably have 1 gearbox near the end, just on the end, and then 2 under here. So we might end up with about 5 in total. So we'll start off with just to sort out gearboxes. If you've not done them, there is a particular way they have to be done. So we'll start with an engine shaft out here and an axis shifting, because we've got to move it across one. And then that comes out with a couple of engine shafts, because now the gearbox can connect, the reduction gear can connect to the whoops, come on, to the engine shaft. Okay, now if I put propeller shaft in there, just to show, you see it's red, it's not connected. An engine shaft will not connect, and on here you can't, these two won't connect. And after a gearbox, I can't put a engine shaft, it must be a propeller shaft. So all your axle shifting here, whether it's left, right, up, down, must be before the gearbox, which is why I couldn't go through this block. It would have been nice to have run it backwards and then done an axle shift near the end, but that wasn't going to happen, so let's not worry about it. Okay, so now we're not going to get a second one in there, so what we're going to have to do is go through these blocks. So we'll get up to here and then use the 2 meter shaft there, go through. Okay, so that's coming through just there. We'll put another gearbox in here. I think we might just get another one in there actually. So let's put a propeller shaft, gearbox, and then we're going to need another 2 meter shaft. We've got three turrets to get through here, and intervening parts. So after running the gearboxes through underneath the 2 turrets, or 3 turrets here, just put one gearbox under this turret, and then one final reduction gear, and then we've gone out to a couple of 5 meter propellers. Now what I can do is give this a little bit of a power testing to see what speed we're going to get. Now we have got a big hunk of lead, so let's see what we can do even with that lead holding us down. I might just put, I think, some of the heavy armour in here and get rid of a bit of that lead, just so that we can see a little bit more what the real speed is going to end up being. And as far as the Citadel armour here goes, we'll use a 4 meter slope, I think, of the to give us a nice bit of protection for this fairly important part of the vessel, but this will increase the weight of the vessel, no doubt. I'll go a bit further forward. Yeah, we'll go up to that point there, and we don't need to go, actually we don't need to go all the way up, so we'll have a go up there as well. Let's use the 3, there we go. That'll do. That's quite a lot of armour, and we've still got a nice bit of protection above. Might need a little bit more, but I think that'll do for the moment. Won't enclose that for this at this second. I think we have got an air pump which is going to be giving us plenty. Yeah, I think that being said, I think I will actually enclose this in. Well, so far going at full constant power, even with the big hunk of lead at the bottom, we're getting up to quite a good 21 meters a second. Now I'm going to limit that speed down. I don't need to go at that speed at all, but it's a good sign that this has got quite a bit of capability of getting up to a high speed. But we'll only need to run the engines or the gearboxes intermittently. So now by setting this control block here to the speed I'm actually want, so let's say we're only going to go up to a maximum of 14, and we're going to put some slaves in here. So we're going to say only if the propulsion is forward. So if the propulsion command is forward, and the vehicle speed is less than 14 meters a second, so it should now just go down to about 13. It's gone down, so it should start the let's get the right place, find the funnel, go down. So let's see, vehicle propulsion command. Because I'm not controlling it, I need to keep the U pressed down. Once the AI is working, that forward command will work. So yeah, it cuts it off when it goes above 14. It should come down again, and what I can do is to stop it bursting so high is instead of setting this to 100, I can set the actual speed to be a little bit of whatever percentage actually gets it to 14. So I'll start at, so I'll do that quickly now. I'll start at, basically I start at 50%, see what speed that gets me, see if that gets me up to 14. If not, increase it, and then I add about 10-15% on top. With having completed the rear propellers by adding in a few extra normal what should we call electric engine powered propellers for cruising mode, shaped the front, shaped the rear, reduced the lead a little bit, and now we are still quite high in the water once it settles down, but we're starting to get a little top heavy. Once it settles down, it has got a rolling of about 5 to 6 meters degrees, so it's obviously starting to get a little unstable. So couple of important parts left. Weight wise, we've got to put all the secondary guns on. Now they are going to add up, and I've already started making some gaps where I think some secondary guns could go, and the AI, which I'll do next. So the AI, I want to be behind the thickest bit of armour, which is this plate here and roughly underneath the bridge. So if we go through here, there is a nice section just here, just above engineering actually, which could be an ideal place for the AI, I believe. Are we doing okay here? Yeah, so I think this will be our AI location. Now they used the wooden floor to place the AI on initially, because that will act as a natural EM brake against anything. So we want to make sure effectively it's anything that we put on here is 1 meter away from any potential EM carrying metal, etc. So I've started off with the standard, put a transmitter and an intra-vehicle. I think an intra-vehicle is handy for being able to well, basically communicate between the vehicles so that we can get spotting from another vehicle if need be. So I'm also going to put some extra surge protectors down just to be on the safe side around this area here, and then our limitation is going to be there. We'll put some 3-block heavy, I think, here. This is going to be a primary target for any enemy, so we will use some heavy armor on this bit, I think. Yes, we'll put some just slopes though on this side, and then we will put a door on here just so that we can isolate it off. And finally we'll just put a metal on the top, so this is command and control, and we might as well put an air pump in here just to be on the safe side. There we go. So AI, let's see what we are going to put on here. We're going to need a card slot. I don't think we're going to need too much on the cards, so I'm actually thinking we have got the new AIs here because we are running the latest build, and they have put some new AI behaviors, but we'll hold on that. I think the most I'm going to need is target prioritization at this stage, but we can add in more. That's right, I'll move this actually up here and then put the card prioritization in here. I should only put one in, good. And then we're going to need plenty of the general processing cards because we've got quite a bit of detection out there already. 1, 2, oh, that's 4. This we don't need some. We'll put one on the end here. Now these these cards, the empty slots on the cards can actually, we'll leave that one spare for the moment, but they can actually take some controllers in there. Let's see, how much is that? That's given us 12 points, and we only need 9.1 power, so that's actually a plus, a benefit to our system at the moment. We've actually got more power than we need slightly, just to put them down there, they look a little bit better. Right, let's now just configure this. Although it's not highly important, we'll go through the behaviors. So first of all, there is a couple new AI behaviors here. So we've got circle the enemy at a given distance, which I think we got the naval, so the add the circle could be an interesting one to do. This has been set at for aerial targets, but I'm wondering whether I could use this on a ship instead, to do the broadsiding. Let me have a quick look, but I think we'll go for a standard naval, I think, on this. This is an interesting one to potentially look at, but I'm not 100% certain I want this at the moment. I think we'll go with the standard naval. We could do a broadside which is either left or right, which is not really suitable. I think we're better going for a standard naval, so it'll broadside one way or the other. Let's see, so now range, this is going to be a battleship, so the ideal range is but a bit closer than your standard battleship. My normal battleships really want to be between 1500 to 2000, so this one I'm going to put at 1200 let's see, we'll enter at 1500. Minimum range is going to be 1200, and we'll have 1600 comes out. And broadside range, we actually want to be fairly much broadside to get all the secondary guns in. I think an 80 degree should be about right. Let's see, what else have we got? Adjustments, it's going to be on water. We can ignore those settings. So we won't allow reverse, and we're going to need a fair bit of depth, so we're going to keep this in basically keep this in open water by setting this up to 100. And the turning circle I think is going to be pretty big on this, so we're going to set it at let's set it at 350. I see actually the turning circles increase considerably, so that's actually really handy. I'm going to set it up to about 500 actually, because often I see this trying to turn too quickly. I think I'll go through the other battleships and change that turning circle considerably higher. That's good to see that. Right, manoeuvring. So we're going to add ship manoeuvring. Wander distance, so that's the distance away from the point, so it's going to be a big ship, so we can go at least 150 away from our here. We're going to use pitch controls to keep our pitch about 3 degrees. I think should be ideal, and we want to keep our ideal distance quite high too. Won't need any additional, and basic configuration, so okay, this is a new one. Additionally, being able to change extra configurations, that's an interesting, well, I'll look on those separately, but let's give this a name. So this is to be the nav plus primary guns, and we haven't given it, I haven't found a captain's name. I will give that a name later on. But that's going to be the mainframe. So that's the mainframe dealt with then, I think, majorly. We'll just check, is that, how armoured is the top of that? No, I think we're going to change the top of this to give it a bit more armour. It's only got some bits of wood. They are reinforced wood, but I think I'd prefer to have a bit more armour against anyone going from my mainframe. So we'll change that to a bit of wood in some of the places. Okay, so that's given us a basic mainframe on this ship now, and so that, which means we can already see it is trying to turn, and what will be interesting to look at is the turning rate it's now got. Now, still trying to turn pretty damn quickly for 500 meters, but let's just give it a couple of targets to try and go for, and we'll see how it actually turns. Seems to be pretty high. I think that waypoint high is based on these adjustments here. I need to set these to 0. Yes, it's now put the target for everything is there. We can see roll wise we've got a bit of roll, as you can see, 6-degree roll, so we'll have to have a look at that. We might have to put a bit of active stabilization in here using some hydrofoils, but we'll leave that until the end once I've had a bit of a balance play. So next I'm gonna look at the secondary guns. So basically I'm going to put turrets, casemated turrets in these 2 positions here, and also 2 positions here, normal turrets on, shielded turrets on the top, and then casements there. Now that will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 6-inch guns firing in the broadside, which I think was about the same, and is going to be considerable enough. And these 3 will be able to fire totally forward on both sides, so we've got potentially 6 at the front and the same at the rear, with these 3 being able to fire totally backwards. So let me just get these casements sorted and in place. With all of the main guns done, and I've sorted out the arcs for the various guns, the secondary guns and all their arcs and the ammo, I've even put a little bit extra armour, changed some of the light alloy to normal metal, and we're still actually floating at a reasonable height, actually, compared to some of the ships I've built, which have end up being a bit wet, shall we say, on the deck. This has actually come out quite nice, and we've even got rid of most of the lead at the bottom, left a little bit down below, but not too much. So we've got room for improvements on this, I think, in the future. So all that I'm going to do now is a bit of beautification and decoration, colour it up, and then we'll try seeing what it's like in battle. I think it's holding its roll and pitch okay. I'm trying to think of anything of it. It's moving around, so we can test the guns. Testing the guns, I want to see if any of the arcs, firing arcs, end up blowing itself up. To show the way that I have done these guns that are in the centre, basically each gun has a couple of control blocks next to the controller, and they set the channel. One sets the channel to 0 if it would be in a position to blow, in this particular case, blow this up, it sets it to 0. The other one sets it to 1 if it's at any other angle other than to blow big chunks of itself up. That's the hope I've got it right. The best way is to test it, and I might have to change angles. In some cases, when going to the rear, you have to say invert, and when going to the front, you have to say it is in that angle. Can be a little bit tricky, so a bit of testing is going to be needed, but otherwise, yeah, let me just paint it up a little bit, put a few bit of little nice bits on there. We're going to have lots of gap and spaces available here in sections for people to put some real good parts on the inside. I'm not going to put beds, I think, in this one, because this is going to be it's not one of my main flagships, but maybe someone else can do that and upload it with a full inside refit. But anyway, let me just paint it up, add a few bits and pieces, like some smoke, I think, and then let's give it into some combat. So after a bit of a paint job, just to give it a bit of colour as my fits my colours, with my primary, my secondary, and just giving it a white, which is common for my naval vessels. Other changes, I've given it some repair bots. I've put shields around. It's got a level 3 shields around the vessel. I also put a secondary AI in here. We have the secondary mainframe, which basically deals with all the secondary guns and primarily aims at anything which is close. It ignores size fairly much and just aims all the secondary guns at small vessels. There's a few machine gun posts just for that extra close in range, and a couple of or 3 AA pom-poms, but it doesn't have any anti-missile protection or anti-torpedo protection at this time. I also haven't added in the torpedoes, although the original did, but that may be something I'll add in if required. Other stats for it at the moment is we're up to 282,000 on resources and 17,000 blocks, so it's become a bit of a monster size, but that's to be considered, considering how many turrets and guns and sheer volume this is. This is, I see, it's a 46,000 volume, and that's just purely because having to fit all of these turrets, I've got to make this so long and then make it quite wide. So although the width says 41, it's actually about 30, because some of that width is these barrels from the secondary guns, so that's about 6 or 7. That's about 12 to 14 meters off of that 41, so that gives it about 29, 31, somewhere around that particular area. So let's give it a little bit of a test. I have tested it already, but let's see how we go. Now it's not, I will say first of all that this would be intended to be part of a larger fleet, either have some smaller vessels acting as support, or it's defending a even larger flagship, but we'll test it against something reasonable just to see how it does. So we've got some very large enemy ships and also some smaller fast ships, just to see what it does with when they start coming in close. Now, one thing I noticed straight away is the guns do have a bit of a problem at long range targeting the enemy. Getting the accuracy is not great for them. Now the secondary guns are working over this charger that's coming in, and they have successfully taken it out with quite a lot of secondary fire. We have taken a lot of damage at the moment, because these guns just do not like firing at the longer ranges. They really have to get in closer before they will effectively fire at the enemy. Now within 2,000 meters of the enemy, the guns are starting to now work over the enemy treachery, and you see quite a few of those hits coming in. They're not massive hits, but they are steadily working over the enemy. And now in the broadside range of the treachery, all the guns are firing, all the main guns, and basically taking out what is remains of the enemy treachery. So that's basically dead. It's just having a problem because it's partially under the water. So even without protection against incoming missiles and torpedoes, etc., the sheer volume and repairability of the ship has meant it's being able to outlast the enemy treachery and other ships and take it out. And I think that was possibly taking on certainly larger than it was intended. In general, it would, as I said, be part of a fleet. I would expect it to be fleet based, so we'd have some ships that could protect it against aircraft and stuff like that, but it's proven itself to be able to last out the enemy. So anyway, this is me building a ship, what I've gone through the various stages, and hopefully it's looking something like the HMS Agincourt with all the guns. Any comments, as always, leave them down below. Any suggestions for other parts, I will put this onto the forum or the Steam workshop if I can get that to work, but the forums, you can download it, and there's plenty of space in the center to add any decorations. I haven't put any stairs between the different levels at the moment. That's the only bit that's missing for the to make it totally walk through, but otherwise I think it's just about there. So until next time, keep playing the game and have fun.